Okay, hi class. So today we're going to be learning how to write a connecting SAQ answer or response. We already did single response, and now our focus is going to be the connecting one, which is where we use two different texts, but we answer one question. So the first thing I want us to look at is the rubric for the connecting SAQ. So whenever you're doing the connecting SAQ, there's 4 different scores you can make. You can score a 0, a 1, a 2, or a 3. Of course, the 0 is the lowest, the 3 is the highest, but in order for your grade to be considered passing, you need to aim for a 2 or a 3. So let's go ahead and look at how they grade your SAQ answer. So in the 0 category, for you to get a 0, that means your ideal is not an answer, the ideal is incorrect, or the ideal is too general, vague, or unclear. So basically with this, the 0, it means you didn't make an inference. The key to scoring a decent grade on the SAQ is to make an inference, which is drawing the conclusion based on evidence from the text. Okay, so with the 1, your ideal is reasonable, but you might not provide text evidence. Or if you do have text evidence, it doesn't really support the ideal that you came up with. Or your ideal needs more explanation. The ideal does not go beyond the literal meaning of the text. It only represents, it doesn't go beyond the literal reading of the text. So that means you didn't really make an inference. Or the ideal is not reasonable for one of the selections. So it makes sense for the first selection, but it doesn't make sense for the second, or vice versa. So you have to make sure that when you're doing connecting, your ideal has to be relevant for both selections. With the score point 2, your ideal is reasonable and it goes beyond the literal reading of the text. So that means you've made an inference, you have text evidence from both selections, and they're accurate and they're relevant to your ideal. So it's clearly linked and it demonstrates that you did understand both texts. And for the 3, you have to have a perceptive ideal. You have to have awareness of the complexities of the text. So that means you have to really be able to come up with a conceptual answer. Your text evidence has to be well chosen and specific. And you also have to demonstrate a deep understanding of the text. Okay, so we're going to look at one of the selections. So this is actually from the STAR SAQ, or it's from a release STAR test. And it says, in creative solutions to life challenges and back home, what made the author happy as children? Explain your answer and support with evidence from both selections. So we're not gonna read the text or anything, but I just want you to see one of the examples that a student came up with and who scored a 3. So this is not something that I wrote. This is something that a student came up with. Okay. So I'm going to read it. You see I underlined the different parts like we've been doing in our own. But it says, in creative solutions to life challenges and back home, their mothers made the authors happy as children. So I highlighted that because that's their ideal. That's their answer to the question. Then they use a transitional phrase. They said, in the first selection, the author states she made being creative as normal as breathing and encouraged our participation. So we have text evidence. She introduced her kids to the creative activities that are fun for them and that makes them happy throughout their childhood. And that creativity is what shapes the author's happiness for his whole life. So then we have commentary, which is our opinions or insight into the text, explaining how the text evidence supports our answer. Then they go on in the second selection, but she found time to rock and cuddle me and sew for the dollies. So this is our second text evidence or concrete detail. It's the same ideal. She can always seem to make time for the little ones, and that open arms makes my childhood and later life as happy as possible. So this is commentary. As y'all can see, this person, some of the spelling and grammar is not correct, but they were still able to make a 3 because they provided text evidence from both of the selections. They had a reasonable answer, and they had insight and analysis and opinions that went beyond the literal reading of the text. And then they conclude their paragraph or their SAQ response with, overall, both selections clearly state that their mothers care and found ways to make the childhood happy. So both of their answers are relevant for both of the selections, not just one. And it's important when you're responding to your own, you have to come up with an answer that doesn't just fit one of the selections. It has to fit both of the selections. And you have to be able to look in for the deeper understanding, the deeper picture. You have to be able to have commentary that explains your text evidence, okay? Okay, so remember, when you're doing this, you have to answer the question. You have to provide your text evidence from both selections, not just one. Okay? And you have to provide commentary, and then you have your concluding sentence. So answer the question, provide text evidence from both selections, provide commentary, and then wrap it up with your concluding sentence. Like I always say, responding during the SAQ response is just like writing a body paragraph. It's very similar, but instead of using real-world examples, we're using our text evidence as our concrete details. Okay, so happy writing.